people do expect their partner to just know. If they love me, they should just know. If they knew me, they should just know. And we absolutely love to get mad at our partner for not giving us the thing we never asked for.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who's out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. Today, my guest is Zach Beach. He is a mental health therapist practicing in Northern California and is committed to building a world based on love and connection. And we're going to be talking about his new book, Love and Suffering, a spiritual guide for helpers, healers, and humans. We discuss the connection between love and suffering and, of course, some of the solutions to relationship problems, both romantic and otherwise. We're going to be talking about such things as how to relate to suffering, why we suffer in love, how wisdom teachings such as Buddhism and yoga apply to today's world, and the important role of suffering in awakening and joy. So let's jump in. This is Zach Beach. Morning, Zach. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for jumping on the show this morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Bob. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're both in California, folks. So get ready for some woo-woo. Or not.
Open our chakras.
Well, we're going to talk about a couple of things that you, and they seem to be almost opposed to each other, but they're not, because one sort of makes the other one necessary, I think. And those two topics are love, big topic, the main thing, that's the underpinning of it all, in my opinion, and suffering, which is the thing that makes love so wonderful and maybe even leads us towards it because it's so unpleasant sometimes. How's that for an opening synopsis of what you do?
I actually love how you said that suffering is what makes love so wonderful. And I did sense perhaps a hint of sarcasm.
Well, yes, because sometimes love leads to suffering.
Yes, that is the main theme of the book, that love leads to suffering, suffering leads to love, but this is actually a good thing. So yes, even the challenges that we find in our most intimate relationships are there for our own growth.
I know sometimes I've been married a long time, and my wife and I will say to each other, I hate you right now. I just cannot stand you. And
I call that soul hate, right? You have your soul mate, and then sometimes you find yourself soul hate.
Yeah, I don't think you can really hate somebody unless you're involved with them at some level of intimacy. It doesn't have to be romantic, but friendships and business situations. When you're involved with people, if it's casual, you don't really hate that many people that are in casual things. But when you get involved with people, they're a disappointment. A lot, I always say nobody does what I want and everybody's annoying, including myself.
Yes, this is the human condition. People will let us down. And even those times of finding somebody who's quite annoying, that too is a teacher that you just met. That is a teacher who is helping to guide you to the lesson of patience, perhaps, forgiveness, perhaps. It's true that in relationships, people do push our buttons, and that's so we become aware of those buttons so that we end up with no buttons. I hear you've been married, so sometimes we say that we all marry our unfinished business. Do you resonate with this idea?
Yeah, sure. A nice percentage of the time, that's exactly what it is. And you bring the thing that the other person needs
Yes.
which is kind of a great way to look at conflict sometimes, where you went, what can I learn, or what can we both learn when this goes on? It's and they repeat themselves. The issues. I mean, I've been married 31 years, and the same issues have been coming up for the entire time.
Hmm.
Two or three major things that are just, I remember one time my wife was so frustrated. I go, well, what do you want? She goes, I just want you to be different. I go, that's not gonna
Yes.
happen. It's just not gonna happen. I'll try to do things. I'll try to anticipate. I can't mind read. I'm flawed in the way that I sort of enjoy my own flaws up to a point. So I don't spend a lot of time going. I hate that about myself. I don't really do that much of that anymore. Um,
No, because your flaws make you who you are.
yeah, yeah. So it's and it's an ever changing situation, because time and familiarity and challenges change the thing that it started to be. But
Hmm.
I think sort of the essence of that remains the same. It's sort of like that flame inside you that never goes out, hopefully.
Ah, the flame of love, perhaps the
Well, the
living
flame,
flame of
yeah,
love.
or just life and inspiration, and
Mm,
just that the life energy force, just even as an individual, that thing that can't be extinguished by no matter what happens around you.
mm-hmm.
Um, and that thing kind of stays there, hopefully, with romantic love too.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm talking a lot. But so, all right, here's what I want to say. I want to say, what's the title of the book? And let's start talking about the things that are in there, because I'm very intrigued by what we can learn from, challenge.
Well, we are talking about what is in the book. The book is called Love and Suffering, a spiritual guide for helpers, healers, and humans. And it covers the myriad of experiences we have as human beings. And yes, there is a whole chapter on romantic love, intimate love, the relationships, the very messy human relationships that we have with one another. It is a spiritual guide, so it goes into the perspective of the Buddha, of Jesus, of the great mystics, and even finishes with how we can love the world, a world that is suffering right now with incredible environmental destruction. But just hearing you talk about marriage, I feel like romantic love is a good place to begin, because so easily our soulmate turns into soul hate. So easily the person that we thought was the most perfect person ever to complement our life in every single way is just as flawed and imperfect as we are. And that's where the real work of love begins. There's a quote I love that what most people call love is just the beginning of love, the falling in love piece. And I write about in the book that evolution kind of tricks us. Like every person has this experience of falling in love. It's called new relationship energy. And the neuroscience will flood the brain with all sorts of feel good chemicals and ecstasy chemicals. And we get butterflies in the stomach just thinking about this person. And that's when we make all those promises, right? To love them forever. You do the pillow talk and start to think of all the names for your kids. And then you make that commitment. And then the real work of love begins as you shift from an idealistic love to a realistic love, from realizing that you didn't find the most perfect person ever. You found a person just as flawed as you. And that person's going to push your buttons. That person's going to test your patience. And that is the best time to work on your wounds, to heal your wounds, because now you are with somebody who loves you and is learning to love you in all that you are, the good and the bad, the imperfections and the perfections. And that's why a romantic relationship is the best container for healing and growth, because you have a dedicated person to help you through those challenging areas.
Yeah, it's so intoxicating in the beginning, and then you have a little bit of a hangover. It's like, can I get through this hangover and get back to maybe another intoxicating moment or two throughout a day?
Yeah. And that's the lesson, right? Like everyone is attracted to novelty. So of course when you meet somebody new, everything's new. Everything you learn about them is new. And that in of itself is very exciting. It just stimulates the reward systems of our brain, just new, new, new. And I often go back to this quote by Anthony de Mello that you cannot love what you are not constantly discovering anew. We have to recognize our mind is a habituation machine. It doesn't take too long before the next big thing becomes yesterday's news. This applies to everything, right? When you get a new car, how much happiness does that car give you over time? Suddenly your brand new car gets a scratch and then suddenly they're suffering again. So it's a lovely practice to learn what it means to discover life anew, to discover your partner anew. Because you mentioned it, we're changing all the time. You are going to be in a relationship with a very different person in 10 years than you are now. So that too, it can be a wonderful path of discovery. Like, what are you learning? What are you discovering? How are you changing? How are you different? How is our relationship different than it was last year or even yesterday? Things are changing all the time. So we can discover something new every day about each other, about this life.
Yeah, there's an irony in that because you also, as a human being, want a certain level of comfort because that feels
Mm-hmm.
good too, which sometimes can be translated into sameness, which and that's not so healthy to me. I mean, some type of growth and resistance is valuable in anything that you do, and to not see it as maybe detrimental or the enemy of what you're trying to do, and yet I love the thing I one of the things I like best about a long term relationship is the ability to just be me and not have to put on any kind of anything for anybody, and the other person's okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like that, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it can get a little bit stale sometimes, where you're just like, we're doing this again.
Well, I like that you combined growth and resistance. And it just brings to mind going to the gym where people do what they call
Yep.
resistance training. And this is part of what it means to be human, that we grow through stress. Sorry if this is bad news for anyone listening. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to get stronger, you have to work your muscles. If you want to become more flexible, you have to stretch. Like, human beings respond to stress by growing. And this applies to the physical level as well as the mental and emotional level. If you want to grow, you have to meet a little bit of suffering, if you will, a little bit of challenge. And it's relationships that do challenge us in all sorts of ways and all sorts of different areas of our life. From, why did you put the milk in the fridge that way? Will encourage us to look at our attachments to things being a certain way, to how do you keep the spark alive? How do you keep passion alive, mystery alive after a few decades? And it's that resistance that we can actually lean into a little bit to see it as a challenge, to see this person that we are with as a teacher, teaching us how to discover themselves anew, how to accept ourselves just as we are. I'm not a big fan of that cliche that you can't love somebody else until you fully love yourself, because as you mentioned, sometimes when somebody else loves us completely, that's when we truly discover our own lovability. When we reveal those parts of ourselves that we feel shame about, that we want to hide away, and then when we do reveal it and it's met with loving presence, oh, I love that too. Suddenly we're like, oh wow, so this unlovable part of me that I've been hiding actually might be lovable after all. So it's bringing light to the shadows.
Yeah, I think there's only ways you can grow in a relationship. There's some things you just can't do by yourself. It's impossible. It's just because it doesn't even present itself. So I think you got to like yourself up to a point, but certainly perfection is not it. Now, here's something I've been thinking about. Well, I think everyone's thought about this over the years. Are human beings not meant or designed to just be with one person? Because there are a lot of people that don't do that, or they're not successful at that if they think they want to do that. Um, certainly on a maybe a biological level. I mean, there's because of the species needing to survive and procreate. There's certainly when you're younger, this is totally you want variety in sexual partners in particular at a young age. But then that becomes, at least for me, it became kind of uninteresting and empty. And so, I wanted to have something that was a little bit more lasting. But I'm not sure is that a manufactured thing by societies um, for survival? And is it real? Is it not real? Is it only real for some and not others? I find that just such an odd thing um, to think about because it creates so many problems. That's really why for a lot of
So,
people over a lot of time.
although you didn't name it, I feel like you are talking about non-monogamy versus monogamy, or polyamory versus monotony. No, I mean monogamy.
Yeah,
And
monotony. Well, a little
and
bit. I am because I think there's a biological thing that is sometimes you get hit with it, and you either don't go down there because it's that road because it's going to create much worse issues than and dishonesty and hurt feelings and all these things you don't want to bring into something that's the most important relationship you have. So you just don't do that. You kind of set your, at least I've set my mind to, I'm not even going to go entertain those thoughts because they're unproductive for what I actually really want deep down.
well, I want to look at the larger context a little
Oh,
bit.
good. Let's do
Whether
that.
not so much get lost in the weeds, um, simply because we first of all need to recognize every human being is born for love. We're wired for love, and we need love. We are extraordinarily dependent on other human beings to love us and take care of us as soon as we enter this world. And as we become a little bit more independent, we can feed ourselves, provide shelter for ourselves. We still need social connection. So we're social beings. We need social belonging. So even when you said, is one person meant to be with one person? It's like, I hate to break it to you, but we are in a relationship with everyone that we meet. We are, in fact, in a relationship with reality. Just to exist right now, you are in a relationship with the oxygen in the air. We live in an interdependent, interconnected reality where our simple existence is supported by millions of relationships. So just as when you go to the store, you're dependent on the farmer who grew the food as you are dependent on the cashier to sell it to you. Like our simple existence is dependent on countless other people. So no man is an island, to borrow the phrase. No person is an island. No person is isolated. We need other people. And that's, again, why a romantic relationship can be extraordinarily healing, because that is the only way to heal is in relationship. We are hurt in relationship and must be healed in relationship. So we must accept that part of ourselves. And we do live in a world that has put monogamy on a pedestal. And as a result, the expectations around the needs that your single romantic relationship is supposed to fulfill is through the roof. Is, as to borrow the phrase from Esther Perel, one person is supposed to fulfill all the needs a village used to fulfill. And that in of itself is going to create much conflict in a relationship when that person does not meet all your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, monetary needs all at the same time, exactly at the same time. So I think by recognizing how interconnected we are with all things, it can alleviate the pressure a little bit. We don't want to put so much on our partner or partners, it doesn't matter, because all we're really talking about is whether or not we're being sexual with other people. By alleviating the burden of you need to meet all my needs at all times, then that frees your partner up to offer the needs that they want to freely, because there are needs you can meet by yourself, with yourself, and you can get your emotional connection met with somebody else. It could be your therapist. It doesn't necessarily, again, have to
Yeah.
venture into the world of non monogamy,
Yeah.
but you can have emotional closeness with friends, with family, with other people in your life. And how you decide to build the parameters on sexual exclusivity, romantic exclusivity in your relationship, it's entirely up to you. Because again, I tend not to go too much down the road of is it natural for human beings to do this? Because whether or not it's natural is much less relevant than whether it's wanted. And I say that because for much of human history, human beings have justified terrible things because they have said it is natural, right? Even today, there are people who still say like homosexuality is unnatural. It is against God's will, and therefore it is wrong, right? We human beings could naturally be murderers, but we want to live in a civilized society. So we're going to inhibit that natural urge that we have.
Well,
So,
kinda. I think people are getting killed every day.
yes, so we must recognize that we do have
Yeah.
natural predilections to things that do not serve, say, love, connection, and belonging. And we need to temper those things. So, like, is it natural of human beings to XYZ? It's not too useful as is
Yeah.
XYZ aspects that we want to bring into life, bring into civilized society? Is it a way we want to organize society?
It seems like I would just call them the sort of more basic survival instincts where, you're ready you want to kill somebody because they're a threat. And maybe in certain environments that actually makes sense. But, overcoming that and not indulging those things makes for a better society. Um,
Yes.
and that's true of almost everything. So, and I guess the problems come in when people have a different worldview of what those things are, and if it's okay or not okay, and even if you think it's not okay, are you still doing it? you still
Well,
do.
I like how you bring in survival instincts because we must all recognize we all have this inside of us. It's wired into us. It's evolutionary psychology, it's evolutionary conditioning. So, a slightly more technical term is like a threat response system. We all have a threat response system, a flight, fright, freeze, and some people add fawn response system. And yes, it was designed to help us survive. So if you're walking in the jungle and you saw a tiger, you saw a predator, it was a very active thing to have. It was a very good thing to have. Unfortunately, now it shows up often not in survival situations, but maybe in survival of our ego situations. So when our partner says, "Well, I think you're wrong," guess what that's going to activate? Your stress response system. Because it's not the
Yeah.
death of you, obviously, but is the death of your point of view, is the death of your ego, is the death of your belief system. And that same stress response system is going to get activated. It's there, it's part of our mind. So it is a matter of learning how to regulate, how to self regulate, how to co regulate as we do in relationships, how to take breaks. Like, hey, you know what? When my heartbeat goes above 100 BPM, this is just relationship science and John Gottman. He says that when your heart rate goes above 100 beats per minute, you cannot have a conversation.
No.
Your ability to empathize, to picture another mind in your mind is gone. So notice it, take a break. This is not going to give you the connection that you're wanting by responding when you're so activated.
I have a friend who she always says, keep your shoes by the door.
Okay. Tell me, what does that mean?
It means when there's conflict, put them on and leave for a while.
Okay.
She says, keep your shoes by the door. Which I understand, And then her husband used to say, erase the tape. In other words, you have a fight, you have a blow up, and rather than discussing the blow up, just rewind the tape and tape over it. Not that it's not worth, talking about if something's a recurring situation, but sometimes it's just fucking stupid. And you go like, well, you said this. Well, that's because I said this. You said that. That's why I did that. And it's, and it just turns into this fight over and over again, and nothing gets resolved. So sometimes it's not even worth discussing something that's happened, and other times it is. And that's and in a non-emotional state is probably the best way to do it.
Hmm.
Um, even but we're not so good at that.
Yeah, it's such an interesting metaphor. First, I just want to say our age is showing already because I feel like there's some Gen X who are like erase the tape, re-record over what you did
Right.
previously. What does that even mean? I just take a new video on my phone.
Yeah, right. There's no tape. What, they don't know what a reel-to-reel tape
um,
is or cassette?
but it is interesting because I did mention the research of John Gottman, and a lot of it is literally videotaping or taking a video of couples having an argument or even just talking and measuring their blood pressure and breathing rate and heart rate and stress hormones in their bodies. And I do think there could be something to be learned from replaying the tape, so to speak, if we're going to continue this metaphor, because just as an elite athlete might review a game to think about what they can learn. So obviously you don't want to replay the tape, which is what most people do. They just replay the argument. They say their point of view again. They don't listen to their partner's point of view again and again and again. The conflict just arises. But can you see the conflict as in your relationship as an invitation to go deeper? Can you replay the tape to learn how you two fight and how to help regulate each other to see what goes wrong? Can you replay what happened in a more self-reflective way where you can understand your contribution to the conflict in your partnership? You kind of mentioned before, like it's so easy just to be like, oh, if you changed, all the problems in our relationship would evaporate. But every partner in relationship needs to recognize their own contribution to the conflicts that are arising, take responsibility for their own stuff and their own reactions to things.
I always like that saying or that thought that when you're having an argument with your partner, that there's it's you're in the room, they're in the room, and so are both your parents.
Yes.
So it's not just you have a biology, you have genetics, you have family of origin, you have social pressure, you have trauma if that's there. There's a lot of factors that are going
Mm-hmm.
on when two people are interacting, and to sort of zoom out and kind of look at that objectively or somewhat objectively then and unemotionally to say, oh, this is what's really going on. There's a lot of stuff going on, but you get these belief systems you come into situations with, and the other person may not even have that belief system. You have a lot in common or you probably wouldn't be together, but also it's this is what this means. This when you said this,
Mm.
this means um, you know you're insulting me. And the other person is like, no, that's not what I was doing. I was just pointing something out that I thought was relevant, and it wasn't meant to be. I'm not being specific because I don't have one right now, but those kinds of arguments are so interesting because something could be perceived as a threat, and the intention wasn't the threat. It wasn't a threat. So I think you have to learn to look at the other person's intent. I think that's important too, and also. There are ways of speaking to other people that are more appropriate than others. I'm dancing around it.
No, yes, I love everything that you're saying. Just how powerful curiosity is. Like, if you think that you've won an argument, you've both lost. Like, you should argue to understand, not argue to win.
Yeah.
A lovely exercise that I originally got from Marsha Baczynski is really so simple. Like, with a couple, you might do this in like a workshop where you have a lot of couples. You have them close their eyes and picture a tree. Now, a tree is a word. We can all agree on the definition of the word. And I have them picture a tree in their mind, like add some color and texture and and maybe the environment that the tree is in, and then open their eyes and share with their partner their tree. And even something as grounded and real as a tree, we all have very different trees. And a lot of it is because of where we grew up. Like, what was a tree to you? You're down in LA. You might think of a Joshua tree, a small little
Yep.
shrubby
Right.
desert organism. Well, somebody else has a much larger, up here in NorCal, we have the redwoods. I think perhaps a much bigger tree. Now, you're not here to argue about whose conceptualization of tree is right. You're not here to argue my tree is better than your tree. You're here to learn about your partner's tree. Sometimes I even continue this analogy. Okay, let's think about God. You're not here to say that your view of God is better than somebody else's. You're here to learn about theirs. So it is true that in relationships, we do bring all of our baggage. And again, it's there so that we can heal ourselves from that baggage. And a huge aspect of that baggage is the conditioning from our parents. So it is also important to recognize, just as you said, when you're arguing, both parents are in the room, is that yes, you did marry your partner's parents. Yeah, that was part of the deal. In fact, you probably chose your partner, and your choice as a part of a partner is a reflection of your values. So you probably chose your partner because of their parents. Now, many therapists say you unconsciously chose your partner because you found the one with the parental conditioning that's going to trigger you the most. But the point is, it's part of the deal, the conditioning of your partner, whether it's parents or society or culture.
I wish there was more awareness of this stuff at a younger age where you could actually be more mindful of how you start those kinds of relationships, but there isn't, and there probably maybe there
Hmm.
shouldn't be because it's because it's so high energy and intoxicating. You know, you can't stop yourself anyway. So what's the point? You know, now that I've just went back on myself, but it would be nice to know certain things, or at least have a sense of what you're entering into. Because some stuff, some relationships are just, they just blow up in the worst possible way. And maybe that's a the learning experience that the person needs to have. And I'm talking about very young age kind of stuff, and that's 20s to me, 20s even 30s.
Oh,
I'm not talking about high
well,
school.
that's where my mind went. Like we teach a lot of things in this world. You can go to college and major in physics or English literature, but we don't teach the most essential things. We don't teach the language of the heart. We don't teach compassion. And I do feel like love education should be part of the curriculum from a very young age. Even when you got into like other modes of relating and perhaps why they do or do not work, much of our conflict in relationship is simply because no one taught us how to be in relationship.
Right.
We never took a course on forgiveness, on compassion. We never took a survey in high school on what our attachment style is. You're supposed to learn on your own, or maybe in relationship, or maybe figure it out. Obviously, we do instill certain values in our children. Like we teach our kids to share at a young age. But did you learn the four components of compassion? Did you learn the four attachment styles? Did you learn the process of forgiveness? Did you learn how to grieve a loved one? I didn't learn any of these things.
Not even close. It was never even talked about. It was just you were supposed to just live, and it's going to happen in the way that it happens. It's almost like there's a randomness to it that like it was the idea. The unspoken is that there is no way to do that because I never even heard of these kinds of things. I mean, I don't think anybody really talked about it. Maybe a couple times I talked about relationships with my dad when I was young. Once in a while, he would say something. I remember um, there was a song. There was a song that John Mayall did back in the 60s, 70s. I can't remember. And the song was called Room to Move. And in the liner notes, it said, a musician's need to love without entanglement.
Hmm.
So, and, so I think it was about 15, 16. And my dad goes, there is no such thing. That's ridiculous.
Mhm.
If you're going to have love, you're going to have entanglement. That's just a guy being selfish who wants to, fuck around and not take responsibility. I go, yeah. I go, well, why doesn't he just say that?
Hmm.
But so I remember, that was kind of a moment, even as a teenager, where I went, oh, I think my dad is actually making some sense here. And I always remembered that moment. I have no idea why. Maybe it's just because I was Mr. Early counterculture, and he was sort of pointing out a little bit more wisdom than just this sort of free love, selfishness, basically, or self-serving, whatever you want to call it.
Again, and this is why it helps just to know some of the basic science of relationships. We all have our attachment style, and many people have avoidant attachment style. And this arises because intimacy is scary. And many people who are avoidant really keep things on the surface, keep things shallow. Even when you mentioned entanglement, I was like, huh, because in relationship science we have the ideas of codependency and enmeshment, and when we do get too entangled with the partner that we are with, and again, we're not taught about these things. We're not taught about the dangers to look out for. We're not taught of things to become aware of. And we're also not given the tools to navigate these challenges.
I was once talking to this, I don't know, she was just in our circle of, friends, not maybe 10, 15 years ago. I said, what is this? I go, some women think that if a man can't read their mind, then they don't love them as much as they should. And she goes, well, I go, what do you mean, well? That's insane. She goes, no, it's not. I go, well, she got divorced, so that'll tell you one thing. She really thought that. And I said, well, whose mind can you read? Can you read my mind? Can you read anybody's mind? I understand the idea of, you know, spending time with people and sort of getting to know and anticipating certain things because of familiarity. But actual mind reading, this is what you're actually trying to say, that this is a real thing, and does it go both ways? I was just sort of thinking she would, kind of agree with me, but she didn't.
This is what everyone, of course, in relationship should know. And it's somewhat intuitive that we are not mind readers. But when it really comes into practice, people do expect their partner to just know. If they love me, they should just know. If they knew me, they should just know. And we absolutely love to get mad at our partner for not giving us the thing we never asked for.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Yep.
And a lot of it, to be honest, does have to do a little bit with the parents in the room. It's hard to ask for what you want in relationships. There's many obstacles along the way. One obstacle is the belief that their partner should just know. Another obstacle is believing that you are worthy. Like many people don't ask for what they want because they don't think they're worthy of getting what they want. They don't want to be a burden. They don't want to be seen as needy. Um, but in being compassionate also to the challenges we have around asking for what we want. Many people can't ask for what they want because they don't know. They don't have the awareness. They probably grew up where all of their desires were just shut down or told that they were stupid, like when you were little, like, what do you want for dinner? Hot dogs. And they say, too bad, that's stupid. And we're going to have carrots and sweet potatoes, like something healthy. And it's very often kids learn at a young age that there's no point of asking what you want because you're not going to get it. There's actually danger in asking for what you want because you could be judged and shamed for it. And we internalize these messages so that when we do end up in relationship, we don't know what we want, or we do, but we're scared to express it.
Never thought about that. People didn't. I thought it was just they're not telling you, but they may not know, is what you just said. And I really like that, because that actually opens up a lot of opportunity for listening and compassion to realize that
Yes.
somebody may not know what they actually want, and there's an emptiness there. There's
Mm-hmm.
a confusion, a loss. That is an opportunity to really, go to another sort of intimacy level to talk about those things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I really love where you went with it. That it's a great opening to conversation, to curiosity, because when I do hear this phrase, just tell me what you want, I hear a little hint of blame. Like it's your
Yeah,
fault for not
sure.
expressing, it's your fault for
Yeah.
not saying it. I also, it sounds like something that's already coming up in an argument where again your heart rate is so high you can't even
Yeah.
empathize with them. There's a pointing, well, you need to tell me what you want, just tell me what you want and I'll do it, you're still the problem, versus what can you do to create a space of exploration, of discovering wants, seeing your relationship as a journey, as an adventure, as an exploration, of inviting each other to discover things that fulfill you the most.
I was reading in your bio that I think you said you were on your way or you're studying to become a marriage counselor, family counselor of some type.
It's
What?
true. I need to update that bio because yes, I'm an officially a therapist
Oh,
now.
so you did it. Okay. So
Yeah,
congratulations. That went
thank you.
fast from yesterday. You were starting or you were
That's my.
beginning.
I need to update that. Sorry.
When I think about it, I've been to couples counseling, way back. My
Okay.
wife and I did it. And I enjoyed it, but I think we both got a lot out of it. And then it
Mm-hmm.
became, sort of unnecessary in a sense, fun and or difficult. But it was like we got a lot of tools out of it and we're able to kind of navigate without it.
Wonderful.
But I was just thinking about I was just thinking about the therapist himself and what he heard and learned after seeing so many couples, and that sort of experience level, you get to see patterns of what, like, and you're talking about a lot of them of what couples do,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you can tell even, are they gonna, is this couple gonna make it based on what I'm hearing here from the start. You don't
Mm.
always know. And are there, I guess there probably are obstacles to breakthroughs, with people where they just can't do certain things for whatever reason. They won't or can't um, let down a wall or open their heart or
Mm.
really listen. And it's kind of, it's kind of a sad thing, because I think most people come in both wanting it to be better. Not always. Sometimes somebody's dragged in.
Often, when you do kind of an intervention with a couple, there's resistance. Partner digs in their heels in a certain way. But that is also what therapy is designed to do, is kind of break down those blockages. Like obviously people in a relationship want to be loving and kind and compassionate to their partner. And many end up in therapy because they're out of ideas. They've tried everything
Mm-hmm.
that they could and they need a little bit of outside help. And again, there's no shame in this because we all need each other. With two people, you end up in opposition. But if you bring in a third entity, it can really help to
Yeah.
uh, exactly, yeah, to break the conflict up. So a lot of it is looking at that resistance, like, oh, I noticed, when I handed you this emotion wheel for you to pick an emotion, you didn't want to use the exercise. Like, what's that about? Like, what comes up for you when you think about like picking an emotion from this thing,
I'm laughing
right?
because as soon as you said that, I got mad. Like, I'm not gonna do
Yeah,
that fucking thing.
exactly. Yeah.
That was my first reaction. I mean, I'm laughing about it because I know better not but it really was this visceral reaction. I don't want to hear this woo woo garbage about feelings.
Emotions. Yeah. And there's a lot of resistance, and again, I remove the blame on any individual because it's that's this world that we live in. Like we live in a very cognitive society. We're all living from the shoulders up. And that's why much of my work in
Mm.
particular is just traveling down into the body, into the heart, to learn the language of our emotions, to learn the language of the heart, to see what it has to say. This is another idea that I've been exploring, like how blame, particularly in the relationships, is such a wonderful way to abdicate yourself of any responsibility. Like, oh,
Oh yeah.
clearly you're the problem. I am not. Like, blame is such a feel good emotion, and you can apply it to other areas of life, like politics. People want to blame a certain,
Well, there's a real charge to it.
yeah, there's a charge to it, and it feels good. It feels good to
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this is something, again, I've learned on this process of psychology and therapy. And it sounds a little odd, but like, anger is an enjoyable emotion.
No shit.
I'm glad
Um,
you agree, because I think a lot of people think, no, I'm trying to get rid of my anger. I don't want to be so angry. No, people being angry, it feels good. It feels good to be so justified. Like, I am
it does.
so right in my
Yeah,
way of
because you're
thinking.
firing what chemical, adrenaline, cortisol, whatever you're firing, that's a high. And
Hmm.
here's the one of the things that I enjoyed about it. Not ultimately no, but the when you're angry, you're very focused. So the
Hmm.
world of you have blinders on and you have a purpose. The object of your anger is your purpose. So the rest of the world's gone. It's like being high or something, and you get the drug charge of whatever you're secreting into your system. You have the blinders on, so the rest of the world and any of your pain is gone. You don't have to deal with it. You just have to deal with this singular object of your anger. And if you can vanquish it in some way, then you've won. So you have a victory. Your ego is stroked. You're high on the adrenaline, and you're a god really in that moment. In a sense, that's what it feels like. You feel like it's transcendent in this bizarre way, even though you're churning inside. it,
Yes. And this is a key theme of love and suffering, that we have to go to the tender places. We have to venture a little bit into the darkness. There's a quote from James Baldwin I love. One of the reasons people cling to their hates so stubbornly is because they sense once the hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with their own pain.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we have to find courage to look at the wounding underneath. And anger is one way of protecting ourselves, of not having to sit with our own pain and our own wounding. Often, when one of our deepest wounds is that I am unlovable or that no one will love me. And when our partner presses onto that wound, when maybe we experience some slight rejection or some slight criticism, we don't want to sit with it. So we get angry.
I have that too. I was just like, I don't want to hear that. That's not true. Or you don't really understand. It's not what that is. It's this. And here's why it's justifiable.
Hmm.
Even though what's going on right now is unpleasant for both people.
Yes.
I'm digging in my heels and I'm not budging on this one.
Yes. And again, it's very natural. This is where I'm not here to blame anyone. Like, it's very natural. Criticism breeds defensiveness. This
Sure.
is, again, part of our survival instincts that we've talked about. It's natural to become either defensive or mutually attacking, to threat and to attack.
Yeah. And the other choice is to retreat and not participate. Well, if you're going to be critical, I'm not even going to
Hmm.
participate. So what's the
Yes.
point?
Attack and withdraw.
Uh,
Criticize, defensiveness. It
well,
is the push pull in every dyadic relationship.
Well, luckily, I find all this amusing because I've been in these situations so much that it's kind of funny to me in a lot of ways, and I think that's a sort of a healthy response to getting to something more important
Mm-hmm.
than rather indulging that sort of turmoil. And I like what you said. When somebody wins an argument, both people lose.
Absolutely.
Time to start a new argument.
I would hope not. I would hope not.
Yeah. So let's talk about the spiritual piece of this because that seems to be kind of I know people get married in churches and temples and in before God, supposedly that's the way they do it. But then they go home, and it's a lot of times there isn't a spiritual aspect to the daily grind of being human. And I like that you talk about working from the neck down and the heart and the soul really. How do you talk to couples about that, and do they seem to respond, or is it really like a foreign language to a lot of people?
I do go back to this basic idea that love is the shortest definition of spirituality. It is the essence of the path. When we do get married in a church, that is, of course, part of it. But if we want a longer definition, I do sometimes go to Brene Brown's definition that spirituality is recognizing and celebrating that we are all inextricably connected to each other by a power greater than all of us, and that our connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion. That final word, compassion, is the key. So when we talk about love and suffering, when love meets suffering, it blossoms, it turns into compassion. Compassion is when you love someone, you want the best for them, and therefore, if they are suffering, you want to alleviate that suffering. You want to lessen the burden. And this is spirituality. This is religion. This is a message that is repeated across all the great world's spiritualities and religions. How to live life with compassion. If you want to learn about the things that can go wrong with the human condition, you can turn to modern science. You can look up every mental illness in the book and every physical illness in the book. But if you want to live and thrive and find joy and compassion and ecstasy, that's where spirituality comes in. And if you want to cultivate compassion, that's where our contemplative practices, our meditative practices can greatly help. And again, we're not taught this. We're not taught how to cultivate compassion. We're not even taught what compassion is. And this is where we need some help, some guides along the way.
A lot of it's universal, but how much of this, the difficulty people have, is based on our particular culture here in the United States? Because it seems really warped to me in a lot of ways. Like the value systems seem very skewed toward materialism and selfishness, and maybe I'm fantasizing that other cultures don't have this, but it just seems like we're so off with this the way things have gotten, even from when I was younger. It seems, and maybe it's just because I have a little bit more experience now that I'm 71 years old, that I see things a little bit differently than I did when I was younger. But I am around a lot of people that are a lot younger than me, and they seem and maybe I was the same way, but they seem very off from the things we're talking about. Maybe that's just a function of youth.
Obviously, today's modern world does present modern challenges that our current society is individualistic, that ignores our connection with other human beings, that is fairly materialistic, that doesn't tell us about the nature of the heart. However, human nature has remained the same throughout time. Our psychology has remained the same throughout time. And that is why we can use the ancient religions that many people don't find relevant today, but they can still be a guide. So 2,000 years ago, the Buddha elaborated on the Four Noble Truths. The first one is that life does contain suffering, that life as we live it contains suffering, or we will experience suffering. The Buddha talked about the archetypal sufferings of sickness, old age, and death. And guess what? Here we are in the modern world dealing with sickness, old age, and death. So when you see, yes, the modern person wanting plastic surgery, wanting Botox, wanting all those things, it's the same suffering that happened 2,000 years ago when people were searching for the fountain of youth. And that's why the lessons that we can find in texts, in all of the religions of the world, can still help us. And that is why, of course, this is a spiritual guide, because it does go into the wisdom of the Buddha, the wisdom of Christ, the wisdom of the mystics. Human nature has remained the same. And I do tend to think of spiritual truths as the same as scientific ones, like they're truths. They are a way to describe this reality as it is.
I wonder how many people are just afraid of it. You know, they're just afraid of the truth. It's just it.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, this is a lesson. I first learned it from Richard Rohr. He's this amazing Franciscan friar. And it's something I also find in therapy, like, because we do help a lot of people with addictions. And something I learned from Richard Rohr is that we're all addicted. We're all addicted to something. Some people are addicted to things that end up putting them in the hospital or in the therapy office, like, drugs, gambling, eating. But we're all addicted to perhaps shopping, to getting in an argument.
yeah.
But we're all addicted to our own way of thinking. We're very attached to our own way of thinking.
Right.
And that is why, of course, the Buddha taught non attachment. The Buddha taught letting go. That's why nirvana is an extinguishment, a blowing out of the candle being our own rigid belief systems, our own things that we clutch onto and hold on to for an illusion of safety and security.
An illusion of safety and security. We know underneath that it's an illusion on some level, some deeper level. We know that that's not the case. That it is an illusion. That's where you get scared. I think it's, and what's underneath that even is the impermanence of being a human being and the
Yes.
desire for immortality in some way. And so I think that people cling to these ideas that make us feel somehow immortal, whether it's seeking power or fame or money or having 55 children or whatever those things are. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it's a human thing. This idea of the denial of death is really what it is. We want to deny that. Um, because it's terrifying. And I think if you can get somehow to the point, and maybe this is part of the spiritual journey, is that where you're not afraid of that. If you're not afraid of dying, of being dead, of death, if you're not really like terrified of it, because I think a lot of people are very terrified of it. When you can get to that point and realize that that is just part of the circle, that there's a freedom to that. That
Absolutely.
you're not fighting so hard and clinging to these things that are not really the truth, because the truth is impermanence.
Absolutely. All these topics are spoken of in Love and Suffering, where the main theme is that suffering is a guru. It has much to teach us. And just like the archetypal sufferings of sickness, old age, and death, although we want to eradicate them, what much of this modern world is focused on. And we do live in a very death phobic society, but we can see sickness, old age, and death also as teachers. And if death is our greatest suffering, then guess what? Death is our greatest teacher. By acknowledging the reality of death, it brings vibrancy to our life.
I have experienced those things, of course, and I would say that the biggest gift that my parents gave me, and this happened with both of them when they were passing away, when they were dying, and the only thing left to say was "I love you." That was it. There was no discussing any sort of past or character issues, or you did this, or why didn't you do that. That was all gone, all of it, all the conflict, everything. It was just essence to essence. I love you, back and forth. That's what happened with both of them to me, and I was like, what a wonderful way to end things. At least that portion of that sort of when you have two human beings and alive. Who knows what happens afterwards exactly, but certainly, and that's the other part of it. It doesn't actually end. In the way that it's not this sort of finite ending, because I've had experiences in dream states or whatever that state is between awake and dreaming, those experiences with other people, with people who have passed away, very profound ones, where it's just as real as me talking to you right now. And so where is the veil is so thin that it almost doesn't exist between
Mm.
this and that.
I'll tell you what, Bob, I'm absolutely loving this conversation. I feel like there's so many directions we could take it,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, I have to get going.
Well, me too. Me too. But this is like one of my favorite topics.
I would love to talk about death and the thin veil between it all. Um,
Yeah. Well,
uh,
I hope you're going to go help some people right now. I have a feeling
yeah,
that's what's going to happen.
that's what I'm gonna go do.
All right. Well, Zach, thanks so much. Say the name of the book, and if anyone needs to contact you, how do we do that? And so we get, if you have something like a website or something.
Hmm. Thank you so much. Well, again, it's been a lovely conversation. I feel like we
Same
could go
here,
on
man.
for
Same
hours.
here.
You have a very warm presence. Thanks for having me. My name is Zach Beach. You can find me at zachbeach.com and Zach Beach Love on social media. And my upcoming book coming out September 1st, which might already be out by the time this airs, is called Love and Suffering, a spiritual guide for helpers, healers, and humans. And that should be available on Amazon and in some bookstores.
Very good. You have a beautiful day, and thanks so much again for being on the show. Loved it.
Thank you, Bob.
Much appreciation for you folks listening to The Exploding Human. The website is theexplodinghuman.com. You can also listen on YouTube. That is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. Once again, I want to thank Zach Beach for being on the show. Check him out at zachbeach.com. Thank you.